Hi everyone. I know many of you already throughout the years of working together, so for those of you who I already know, it's a pleasure to see you again. For many of you, as we went around the tables, it was a great opportunity to put some faces with names that I've seen on email lists and in discussions, and so it's nice to see you in person, and I hope we get a chance over the next day or several days to actually have some time to sit down and talk in person. As Kathy said, there is a global policy landscape that we're all working within, a context, of course. That global context is derived from the bringing together of a lot of local policy contexts. So I really do want to emphasize that, because what we hear from countries in major international meetings often reflects the challenges and concerns that they have at the domestic level in your countries. So that we can't separate global internet governance conversations from the national or local conversations that are going on in your countries. Obviously, as we know, as the internet has grown, as it has developed into a technology that we're all using in this room right now into our everyday lives, it is not surprising. It's not surprising at all that governments and policymakers are trying to figure out what their role is in this space. This has been going on for a long time. That's not news to anybody here. But the policy questions that this pervasive internet technology raises are pretty profound and pretty complicated. And what we're hearing at the international level is a real desire by policymakers to figure out what their place is in the internet ecosystem. How do the governments engage in the multi-stakeholder discussion? And again, I don't think this is news to anybody in this room, so I won't belabor the point. But I think it's fair to say in 2003, 2005, when we had the WSIS, it was sort of the first time the internet governance discussion emerged on the global scene at a diplomatic level. And that conversation has matured over the last decade. And I think right now we're very much in another inflection point for internet policy at the global level. That inflection point really started at the WICET, the World Conference on International Telecommunications, where we had a real division of countries, right, over what should this treaty look like? Should we even have a treaty? And what would the impact of that be on global interoperability? If we fast forward from WICET, what we see is that conversation continuing. I will say in the ITU context, countries are kind of tiptoeing back to the table and trying to decide if it's going to feel and sound like the WICET did in 2012, or if countries have moved on from that. But in this year, obviously, it's been a very busy year at the global level. We had, in the ITU, we had the World Conference on World Telecommunications Development Conference, mapping out what is the ITU's development strategy. There's a huge policy component to that. Net Mundial, which I think many ISOC chapters were part of, was a real question of, can the multi-stakeholder model do something different? Can it bring people together around a vision? We had the WSIS plus 10 just last week. And we have the IGF, of course, coming up in Istanbul, which is critical. We want to make sure the IGF is a healthy and sustainable mechanism for multi-stakeholder internet governance at the global level and then at the regional and national levels, right? And many of you are involved in your regional or national IGFs. And then at the end of this year, we had the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference, which will be another treaty conference of the ITU, another place where governments will come to the table primarily. It's an intergovernmental meeting, and really try to figure out what's the role of the ITU, what's the role of intergovernmental organizations, what's the role of government in the internet or in this communications ecosystem. That's just a list of meetings. So I think it's important that we understand what that calendar looks like, I think it's also important that we think of what are we trying to achieve. It's not multi-stakeholder just for the sake of it. We are talking about multi-stakeholder models because we think that that's the right way to develop technology. It's the right way to implement a development strategy if it's about internet exchange points or capacity building. It's also the right way to develop good public policy. And so throughout these conversations, what we're trying to do is put forward a vision that says the internet has something to teach public policymakers about how to make good policy, how to involve the community, and to create a policy outcome that's good for the global internet. In some cases, there are governments that don't have that as their core objective. Maybe it's not the goal of a policymaker to create or sustain the global internet. And that's, of course, also an advocacy opportunity to showcase the benefits and the reasons why that's so important. I do want to come back, I think, to the points that a few people made on the local policy challenges that are being faced in each of your countries. This is an international context. It is diverse. It is complex. The policy challenges that any one country is trying to grapple with respect to the internet are incredibly complex. The transitioning from a purely telecom to a IP-based environment creates a whole set of challenges. How to deal with the security issues, how to ensure that the internet is a trusted technology. We're hearing a lot about quality of service issues from many developing countries. A desire to understand what all these I-related groups actually do and how to interface with them. So there's a lot to focus on, and I think what all of you bring is the passion for the principles, knowledge that you can share with each other and with us, and an entry point into the policy community in your local environment. And my understanding from Ted and others is that there's been a desire from chapters to understand how to interface with your governments, to understand how to be effective advocates at the local level, and I think that's what we're going to do today, and I'm looking forward to hearing that conversation as well. So that's a high-level sense of some of the framework that I think we're operating within. If I missed something, if there's a policy related topic that you're focused on and you want to hear more about, we'd be interested to hear that from you. But I think that's at least an overview of what we're up to. Comments or questions? Yes. And then Alice.
How well organized is internet societies?
I can hear you.
How well organized is internet societies public relations division? Right, public relations. I mean, all communications to the press and to governments, and how do we disseminate information?